cash going double. Ain't never a trouble. 9 to 5 on the side, I still hustle.
Oh, we gotta talk today. Now, so far, I have turned $500 into $126,743, and I'm on a mission to go all the way to $1 million bucks. But today, we're not gonna look forward, we're going to look back. Because I was recently asked in a comment what I would do differently today if I had to start all the way back at the $500 mark. And that made me think a lot about the past and what I would do differently, and there are a lot of things that I would change. So today, I'll lay my pride on the line, we'll evaluate by net worth stage what exactly we would change. And the stages that we're gonna look at is $500 to $10,000, $10,000 to $50,000, and $50,000 all the way to $100,000. And hopefully by the end of this, those of you that are on a similar journey or your own journey will be able to learn from my mistakes, and those of you that aren't, well, you can just point and laugh. And also, as a bonus, at the end of the video, I'll give you guys an inside look of what's going on right now and to come in the future, now that we've surpassed that 100,000 mark, and what we'll do to get to $500,000 next. So with all that said, let's get right into it. All right, so here we go, $500 to $10,000. To be honest with you guys, there's not much during this stage that I would change for one main reason. This was the stage where the net worth was pretty low, so nothing that I did was gonna change the net worth one way or another too much. So all in all, I did feel as though it was a pretty good time to experiment.
But this is the song, it's called Positive Vibes. Life and all is positive vibes.
If you guys have been watching for a while, or maybe you're new to the channel, I did start a junk removal business, and that did fairly well. But the thing that was always an issue was, time. It was a service-based business. It was something that I always had to be present for. I know everybody likes to say you can hire employees, and you can, but unless you've had a small business before, you've hired employees before, you'll know it's not exactly that easy, especially for like low wage, low skill type activities. It often can be more hassle than it's worth. So with that said, maybe there is one thing that I would change. I probably should have begun to maybe test or try some ideas that didn't necessarily require my physical presence or my labor to make it happen. I would likely try something more online based, which is really funny coming from me because I'm the type of person that often kind of poo-poos on those ideas. And with so many grifts going on in that space in particular, I just decided to stay away. But I do think, looking back at it now, knowing presently today, with my time being such a limited resource, that it's something I would have liked to try back then to maybe set the foundation for something in the future. So all in all, with that first stage, like I said, I wouldn't have changed too much. I think experimentation with that kind of stuff is good, but I would have liked to maybe expanded my horizons a little bit more back then. Now, I know I didn't have much to say about the $500 to $10,000 stage, but that's because I have a lot to say about the $10,000 to $50,000 stage. A lot. And that's because during this stage, it's probably where I made most of my mistakes. And given the opportunity, I would change some of them or just avoid a lot altogether. Now, during this time, I was starting to flip furniture a lot. And instead of focusing on my core business, you see, I began to try a lot of different things and invest a lot of money into activities that time could have been spent better and money could have been put to better use too. I got a lot of cards. I paid $750 for them. I know it sounds like a lot. And you know what? Shoot, it probably is, because the reality is I don't know a whole lot about Pokemon cards. And to embarrass myself further, here's a short list of what I'm talking about. I bought Pokemon cards to flip, I bought a pinball machine to flip, I bought AMC, a fractional vacation rental, a Turo car, and I started another service-based business when I already had no time as it was. I was caught between a world of what would make the most money and what would provide variety on the channel despite the reality at hand. And at worst, I lost a lot of money. And I'm gonna go into greater detail on those exact mistakes in a future video, but for the purpose of this one and to keep it concise, here are the 3 big things I would do way different. All right, so number 1, I would dive solely into what was making me the most money at that time, which was flipping furniture. It provided really great cash flow, and it was easily the best dollar per hour gaining activity that I had at that time. Now, during the same stage as well, I had also gotten my real estate license. So from there, any extra and additional time that I have, I would use that using my real estate license. And not at all because I want to be a real estate agent or be a retail agent going forward. That's not the case. It's simply because real estate's going to be such a big part of what we do in the future that it would have been really beneficial to start to learn a lot of that stuff early on. It would have been so much better to start to gain those relationships, experiences, learn the processes, the marketing side, the legal side, the sales side, all the required paperwork, and just generally the best practices in the business. Because even if we weren't going to use all that back then, we know that we're going to use it in the future, so it would have been really great to pick up all that knowledge a lot earlier. And on that same note, if you guys know me at all or have maybe listened to my channel for a long time, this last one is probably the most important to me. Listen to me extremely clearly. If I could go back in time and change one thing on the channel out of everything, I would have done a house hack as early as possible, and I have an actual example as to how the channel has missed out on hundreds of thousands of dollars as a result of not doing that. All right, so back in October of 2020, while the channel was going on, I purchased a triplex for $440,000. My interest rate was 2.25%, and I purchased it using a VA loan because I was in the Air Force. Now, I didn't include this as part of the channel because I didn't want to use my VA loan as such an advantage because it's not really repeatable. I had planned on using an FHA loan if I were gonna do it as part of the channel. With an FHA loan, I could have put down 3.5%. Now, I really wanted to do this with an FHA loan because I wanted to showcase how awesome house hacking is. And if you don't know what house hacking is, it's when you buy a multifamily property, like a 2, 3, or 4 unit property, as your primary residence, totally legal by the way. You live in one unit and you rent out the others. Typically, you can live there for free. In some cases, you can actually make money and live there for free as well. Either way, your property gets paid down, you gain equity in it, and your cost of living is subsidized. But like I said, I needed 3.5%, which would have been, after closing costs and everything, around $20,000, and I just didn't have it on the channel at that time. Big regret. Because long story short, that property is now worth about $740,000, which is a $300,000 increase. Good for me, and I'm not complaining, but a huge miss for the channel's journey because the net worth of the channel would be approaching $500,000 now at this point. And there was also a further downside because when you buy a primary residence, you're supposed to live in it for a year. And I was thinking that maybe when that year is up, I'd do another house hack as part of the channel at that time because I'd have the money. But wrong-o, Corey, wrong thought. Not the case. Because in 1 year's time, my life looked entirely different. In 1 year's time, my wife had our third child, our other 2 children were older and now going to school. My wife didn't want to move again, understandably so. And I just knew at that point, another house hack was just not going to be in the best interest of my family. So as much as I had this dream to do a house hack on the channel to show how it's done, I just knew it wasn't gonna happen. And that honestly kind of threw a wrench into my plan because from the very beginning of starting this channel, I knew that was the #1 thing that I wanted to do, and now it was gonna be just impossible. And honestly, as a result of my #1 goal that I had set out to do just not happening and not coming to fruition, I felt pretty lost and unsure of what to do. But some good news is that is recently changing. Not a house hack, but more on that soon at the end of the video that involves real estate. So in summary, for the $10,000 to $50,000 stage, I would have flipped furniture like crazy. I would have gone hard into the world of a real estate agent. And 3, I would have begun house hacking as soon as possible for me and my family. And anything else besides those 3 would have just been a distraction to the bigger picture. All right, so $50,000 to $100,000 net worth. I think this, objectively speaking, evaluating myself here, I think this is where you really start to see me get my act together on the channel. Because this is where I feel like we entered the golden era of our flipping that we got going on. Real estate, it was out. Flipping though, that was in. But even with all that said, there is one big thing that I would change, even going on presently today, that I would change if given the opportunity. All right, so this is the point in time on the channel where we went from flipping out of the storage units to actually committing and getting this really big warehouse that you see here behind me. And the whole reason we did this was so we could begin ordering the big truckloads of return pallet furniture from B-Stock.
This guy's out of his mind.
And I wanted those truckloads so bad because I knew that that would bypass the whole acquisition stage of furniture flipping and I could just get stuff delivered to me right here. The problem though, was that I needed a facility that could A, fit all the stuff because it was pretty big stuff, and B, fit a semi-truck on the delivery days. So to get straight to the point, this worked really well.
Oh.
Dude, I can't believe it's not butter. It really did. It worked very well. To put it into perspective, when I got this warehouse, we were on like episode 90 and our net worth was around 50,000. And immediately we began making tons of sales with really big margins. Every episode, the channel net worth was going up thousands of dollars. 85,100, 96,075, 106,000, 111,265. I mean, the growth was seriously exponential, and within 20 episodes, our channel net worth had grown to $100,000. Now, you might not know this if you're new to the channel, but during this time as well is when I made the switch of going from stuff that was return pallet furniture like that up there to stuff that was brand new in the box, like this stuff over here. And getting these new wholesale couches, well, that eliminated a whole nother step of the process, which was doing repairs or cleanings if stuff came in that needed the work. Look how filthy this is. Dude, there's no way. The downside though is that these new sets, well, they're a lot more expensive, and as a result, the margin is a lot tighter. For me though, fair trade. Right now, for me, time is my most precious resource, so the trade-off is well worth it with a lower time commitment. Now, all this sounds pretty great, right? Well, it is, except there's just one big thing that we gotta talk about. This place. This whole place. I don't need all this. It's too big. You see, I know a lot of you probably aren't expecting me to say that, but I don't actually need this big of a warehouse now that we're doing these new in the box items. And at this point, I can safely say, I would have rather just stayed at a storage unit and gone straight to the wholesale couches. The overhead on a big warehouse like this here where I live is about $2,300 a month. And for the pallet returns that I was doing, it is necessary. You do need this space. You do need to have space for a semi-truck and to have the pallets come in here. And B-Stock was great for me, and I made a lot of money. And frankly, I might still order a truckload occasionally if I'm in between shipments of these new boxes. But ultimately for me, it's just not the best thing to do going forward. Because the thing about new in the box couches is that they come packaged in the box. Much more compact. And depending on how many I were to order, I could get them on a smaller truck if I were at a storage facility. So plainly put, I don't really need this big of a space anymore. I could probably downsize, use the space just as effectively, and save like $1,000 a month. You know, even better though, would be if I could somehow buy my own commercial space, like a flex space with a little retail in the front and a little warehouse in the back. And don't let me get ahead of myself. That's actually what I want to talk about next. And that's the plans that I've got to go from $100,000 to $500,000. So let's talk about it. $100,000 going to $500,000. What's it gonna be? Drum roll, please. Real estate is finally happening. Like actually guaranteed. I already have an accepted offer on a property. I'm going through the underwriting process now, and assuming everything goes smoothly, we should be closing in like a month or so. I don't want to say too much because it'll spoil it, but it is residential. It's not a house hack. It would be a live-in flip, which to me is the next best thing to a house hack. And we do stand to make like $100,000 when it's all said and done. So more to come on that very soon. Now from there, the thing about real estate is once you have it, you can kind of use it as a tool to do other stuff. So from there, I'll be able to use the equity of that property as well as the cash flow generated from the couch sales here to probably buy more rentals or do more flips throughout the year. And on top of that, like I mentioned a moment ago, I got my eyes peeled for some commercial spaces too. Now the perfect place for me would be a small flex or industrial building with 2 units. Because my days with residential house hacking is done, but I can still do it with commercial. And I love the idea of having half where we rent to a commercial tenant and the other half where we're using for our own business purposes with the furniture business here. All right, and last but not least, and I kind of hate myself for saying it, but I gotta start considering all the digital opportunities that are out there. And I gotta admit, I have been an OG player hater of all things digital for just the longest time. But the truth of the matter is that I think the reach and potential for stuff like that is just, it's unlimited, and I would be dumb not to experiment and do stuff with it on the channel here. Plus, I think it could be pretty interesting. But don't worry, I'm not gonna do it in a weird way, in a sketchy way. Like, you're not gonna catch me doing like Forex trading and day trading and whatever, stuff like that. In fact, it'll be things that I originally make myself. For example, I want to do a new series on here, inspired by Micro's Dirty Jobs, but with a focus on side hustles or small businesses. My first test of this was the Christmas light video we did not all that long ago, so I've got some more stuff like that coming in the pipe here too. So with all this said, guys, I hope this video will inspire somebody to think critically about maybe their own journey or their own path that they're on. Because to know where you're going, you've got to know where you came from. Now, to be honest with you guys, that was an original thought when I wrote that, but I looked it up and it turns out that Maya Angelou, she pretty much already said that, so credit to her. Anyway, guys, I'm feeling great. The future, it's looking good. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Check out these ones right here. As always, I appreciate you guys so much for watching, and we'll see y'all next time.